What's going on, people? It's your boy back at it again with another topic. And today I want to talk about I saw a clip of Mace, and what he said was quite interesting and had me thinking about two things really.
I'm nothing like what I look like. Why do ugly niggas think just because they're ugly, they're more tougher than good looking niggas? I never understood that. Just because you're ugly don't make you a gangster.
So that is the stereotype of pretty boys being weak and fragile, and the misconception of the light-skinned men being soft and also being weak, and also that narrative being pushed amongst the black community. Now, just for clarification, I'm not saying that light-skinned men are better looking than dark-skinned men or they are superior, but I'm just trying to more concentrate on the fact that light-skinned men are more deemed as being weak. And me being of a light-skinned complexion, I wanted just to talk about it from my perspective. That, light-skinned men are weak, and they're not being able to fight. They have no bad bone in their body. They can't hurt a fly. They're real feminine. They lack masculinity.
I like light skins, but I do not like light skins. They are too feminine for me. So.
Oh, the key says.
But shout out to all the light skinned brothers out there that are beating the stereotypes, that are disproving the stereotype that all light skinned men are weak and feminine. Shout out Andrew Tate, even though he's a bit on the white side, but he's still a light skinned brother. Shout out people like Anthony Joshua, been knocking out guys for days. Shout out people like, even though they're fictional characters, but they still represent life. And there's still light-skinned guys out there like that. Ghost, played by Amari Hardwick. And Sully from Top Boy, played by Kano. And a lot of the times you find that in certain situations, pretty boys might find themselves being picked on or being laughed at, or depending on the situation. Now, this could be due to the fact that they are probably getting a lot of the female attention, or there's an assumption that they get female attention. Now, just to clarify, there's a difference between a pretty boy, which is mostly common amongst teenagers, and a handsome man. Now, a few examples of this is a pretty boy who would be deemed as a pretty boy would be someone like Jude Bellingham, someone of mixed race descent with a light skin complexion. He's a footballer who plays for Real Madrid, as well as Zac Efron, who has more of a broader, whiter, universal look. They would also fall in the category of pretty boy. Now, there's an assumption that pretty boys almost have the attitude that they don't want to get their hands dirty. And if it came to it, they wouldn't be able to protect their women or back their friends in a fight. They are just so non-confrontational when it comes to it. Now, being in the black community, there is a divide. I'm not going to touch so much on the women point because only the women can speak for themselves, but from the man's perspective, dark skin and light skin man, there is a divide, and sometimes there's a lot of colorism that people don't really talk about, and it's mostly coming from dark skinned men hating on light skinned men, but sometimes it's always disguised as banter. But it's always the fact that, in the black community, the light skinned man is always deemed as being weak. And listen, for anyone that's watching this, whether you're dark skinned, especially if you're light skinned, who's of that complexion, comment if you agree that being light skinned, black man often leads to being deemed as weak and lacking a backbone. It's as if they automatically place you in that beta category. I mean, if there was anything when it comes to judging a book by its cover, trust me, if you're a light skinned man, you're automatically judged without the person even knowing your character. And I think that's some men, as well as women, perceive that dark-skinned men are the stronger race, or that's how it's been led to believe. I personally don't agree with this because, in my opinion, I've seen both dark-skinned and light-skinned men that can be deemed as weak. And on the flip side, I've also seen dark-skinned men and light-skinned men who are very masculine in who they are. There is a real misconception that all dark-skinned men are about that business and they're all masculine, because I've seen some real beta dark-skinned men and vice versa. Now let's listen to Charlemagne's take on this issue.
Joy watches Steph. Steph is one of the few light-skinned men
Right.
I actually root for. Why
I don't
is
root.
that?
I just don't I don't root for beige guys like that.
Why do you think that you have a beige prejudice?
I do. I'm sorry. It goes back to New Jack City. I'm sorry. I know people are listening and like, this is that complexion bullshit. I forgot the fucking...
Colorism.
Colorism. There you go. I was trying to figure out the woke term they use.
Yes,
Right? That colorism shit. But listen, that's just one of the things I haven't unlearned yet.
Right.
New Jack City. Nino Brown.
It
When
got
he
in you.
stabbed Christopher Williams in the hand and said, I never liked your pretty ass anyway, and then choked him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. That's in me.
Now,
And the fact that most light-skinned men I've met, other than T.I.,
Right.
are absolutely the stereotype of all light-skinned men.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? T.I. and Chris Brown. Beige with dark-skinned tendencies, both of them.
Okay.
Well, and dark-skinned stereotypical tendencies, so to speak. Yes.
Right.
Now, sadly, I've met a lot of people in my lifetime with the views of Charlemagne, and unfortunately, this way of thinking has plugged the black community, which is unfortunate. You know, there was a time when I was listening to Drake, and he had a lyric that I found very interesting, and it went something along the lines, "I used to get teased for being black, and now I'm here. I'm not black enough because I'm not acting tough or making stories up about where I'm actually from. Yeah, but I just have to roll with it." You see, in this lyric, Drake reflects on his experience with identity and the challenges of fitting into different cultural expectations. Being biracial, he often finds himself navigating the complexities of both black and non-black identities. The line, "I used to get teased for being black," highlights the bullying he faced in his youth, while "I'm not black enough" addresses the criticism he receives for not conforming to the certain stereotypes associated with black masculinity, such as acting tough or exaggerating his background. Ultimately, Drake conveys a sense of resilience, choosing to embrace his unique identity rather than trying to meet others' expectations. With that being said, depending on the environment you grew up in, unfortunately, you will have people who will try you, either for your pretty boy looks or in the black community being of a light skin complexion. And you know what's funny to me is that I grew up in South London, and if anyone knows South London, some parts are very crime-ridden areas with a number of gangs. Something I noticed growing up was that the biracial guys who were deemed as pretty boys in those exact gangs had to be 10 times more violent than their counterparts, than their dark-skinned counterparts, or they had to be more risk takers when it came to committing certain crimes. It almost reminds me as when you see short guys, because short guys always adapt the Napoleon complex. Now, the term Napoleon complex refers to a psychological term often described as a superior complex that is categorized by overly aggressive and domineering behavior, particularly in individuals of short stature. The name comes from the historic figure Napoleon, who was believed to be the shorter than average and is often portrayed as having a desire to compensate for his perceived physical shortcomings through assertive or ambitious behavior. The stereotype that pretty boys are weak or incapable of defending themselves is a pervasive misconception that often leads to bullying, unwanted attention. This belief can be particularly pronounced with the certain communities where physical appearance can unfairly dictate perceptions of strength and masculinity. It's crucial to understand that perception based on appearance can lead to unjust assumptions and challenges. For those labeled as pretty boys or individuals of lighter skin tones with black communities, it's important to recognize that these stereotypes do not define your strength or character. Learning to a young kid coming up now who may be deemed as being a pretty boy is important in learning a combat sport can be an empowering way to define yourself and gain confidence, preparing you for situations where you may feel threatened or judged. I had a friend when I was in school, pretty boy, with green eyes, you know, everything that stereotypically this person had that deemed you as a pretty boy, he had everything. The green eyes, the curly hair, the light skin complexion. The girls loved him, everything. People wanted to like bully him, but they couldn't bully him because this guy at the age of friggin' 8 years old, he already enrolled himself in kickboxing. So by the time this guy was 11 years old, this guy was doing spinning house kicks. This guy was literally beating up guys that was twice his size and older than him. So he got the respect. And I remember his mum saying that she had to, because he didn't have a father figure around. And I remember his mum saying that she had to put him into some sort of combat sport because she knew that because of his looks, he was going to get targeted by a lot of male guys. And because he was, as a kid, people were confused whether he was a girl or a boy because of his pretty boy looks. So, you know, at the end of the day, it worked out perfectly for him. You also have to remember, one of the greatest boxers of all time was a light-skinned guy who actually embraced his looks and shouted it out loudly.
I'm handsome, I'm fast, I'm pretty, and can't possibly
Being aware that these challenges exist allows you to navigate social's environment more effectively and break free from limiting stereotypes. Remember, true strength comes from within, and everyone has the potential to redefine what it means to be strong. So, don't let stereotypes define you. Embrace your strength, learn self-defense, and show the world that appearance does not dictate your capability.